Good afternoon. This is Joseph Noecker with the Center for Self-Balance once again, and we are going to be talking today about a concept that I think is hugely valid for pretty much all of us in about any situations that we have with ourselves or with others, and that's why it's sort of dear to my heart. Plus, it comes from one of my dear mentor educators, Mr. Carl Jung, which So Carl's with me here to talk about this a little bit, which is always a good thing. But we're going to talk about projection. Now, projection it's a term that's sort of come into our culture probably on a broad scale in the last 15, 20 years. And sometimes it's used pretty correctly, and sometimes it's not really used correctly. But we're going to kind of quickly sort of get to the root at it from where Carl sort of stood from. And let's start with the basics that projection is about us. So that's the first part that we want to sort of grasp, that projection is it's a self-awareness tool if we use it right. And we get clues to understanding ourselves all the time, and projection is one of those things that if we are paying attention, we get lots of really good information on a regular basis. And it's an internal process, but we're going to talk about that. Now, up above me, I'm going to stand up here. This is a painting that I did, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. And it was just, it started off as just an abstract, but I knew I wanted to, I was thinking about, I'd come from a client, I was thinking about projection, and then when I started painting just abstract about a quarter of the way through it, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to keep on going with this thought because this is reminding me of projection. So I'm going to explain how it sort of came out, but it's a good representation of how we utilize this process, not always inside of our awareness, okay? So I'm going to stand up now, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. Okay, so everything looks good there? All right. So if you look here, obviously it's an abstract, and if you can see here, on this side, this is where our view would be coming from. So this is us, anybody, and this is any of us looking out into the world. So as we look out into this external world that we're in, we look in terms of, we see things as sort of physical things. These are sort of a abstract interpretation of everybody in our lives, everybody in our culture. These are like faces that are just out there that have to do with anything personally and non-personally. And then the things, the buildings and the things like that, the trees and etc., are just basically the way that we look out into the world. We see things as physical. Most of us were never taught otherwise to see things as physical. Quantum physics is sort of indicating that things aren't really physical, but in reality, this is our first go-to. So this is the key part of the projection part. And what this piece right here, this is basically like a mirror that we're looking through sideways out into the world. We don't really know we're looking through that mirror, but we are. It's always in front of us. And that mirror represents in us, it represents that part of us that we don't know about ourselves. So what happens is we look out into the world, all the people we know and all the people and all the things and all the whatever it happens to be, politics or families or anything, we cannot help to look through it without looking through a mirror of who we think we are. Everybody with me? Say yes. All right. That's as simple as I can put it. So it's like, so the key is know that when we are looking out there, we think we're seeing something absolutely factual, but we're actually seeing it from a lens that we are putting on top of it. We're creating our own definition of that. Not that we all can't agree on some of that, but it doesn't eliminate the thought that we have this filter in there working all the time. So where this comes in handy though, and I'm going to sit down here in a second, is when we run into situations that evoke feelings inside of us. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because this is where, person to person, this is where it becomes very important to our self-development and our self-awareness, to pay attention to emotions and feelings that we feel that we don't really understand, right? Like, have you ever met somebody and you didn't really know them, but within 10 or 15 seconds, you're like, I don't really like this person. In fact, they're really getting on my nerves, right? And if I step off, most of us don't, because we all have egos. This is the ego doing its thing, by the way. This is the ego comparing and contrasting. Remember, that's what the ego likes to do. It starts to compare and contrast. So we want to step at that when we feel those emotions, when we feel those feelings coming up, then we want to be able to step back just a bit and say, hold on, I don't even know this person. And if I don't step back in a fairly quickly time, the ego will start filling in the blanks. I don't like them because they're loud. I don't like them because they're rude. I don't like them because they're cheap. I don't like them because they're, not nice to, I don't like them, blah, blah, blah. I can go on and on with all that. So if I don't fill the space to go, whoa, this is a feeling that's coming seemingly out of nowhere, and if I don't catch it, I project it onto that out there, when in reality there's not enough information for me to feel as strongly as I do. With me? And so I project it, so I want to slow down to go, okay, I know one thing now. This is about me. Now, before your ego starts to argue with me, which it will, it doesn't mean you're going to love this person. If it's a negative, it doesn't mean that this is going to become your best friend, although it could be. I've got stories and heard many stories where people do become friends after this. But many times that's not the case. It's the overreaction that we're looking for. It's the strong feelings. So the formula sort of is strong feelings with little amounts of information about them, right? And this can be repeated stuff, true. So I could do this in politics. I could do it with family members, because there comes a time where I stop listening. I don't take in any more information. So I could say, I've known this family member for 35 years. It never changed. But in reality, I shut off experiencing them as in the present many years ago, because I got caught in that projection many years ago. Follow me? So projections, once they start working, they don't go away until I exercise them away. Huge, huge point. So the bad news is they'll stick around forever. The good news is once I get a hold of it, I can start to release them. Once I start to see, oh, there's a mirror here. And it doesn't mean that I am those qualities, but it means that there's something in those qualities that I have a little bit in, and I don't want, my ego doesn't want to own any of it. So it stays irritated and angry out there to unconsciously keep me away from addressing something that's in me that in reality, if I address it and just accept it, it can open up lots of space for me. So that's the projection piece. And that's a piece that we're going to continue on in different amounts of different series, kind of get into it deeper. But I want to make sure that you get that. And today, what I want you to do, or tomorrow and this week, I want you to pay attention to the feelings that are unprovoked of people. I don't care if you're at Walmart. I don't care if you're at a family dinner. You're listening to a TV show. You're watching the news. I don't care where it comes from, because remember, we got a whole world out there of experience that this ego is kind of traveling around. And we want to start paying attention this week to what am I feeling, and is it something that's lingering, and is it something that's been there for a long, long time? I want to step away and kind of look at that, and we'll go into this deeper. So thank you for showing up. Joseph Noecker with the Center for Self-Balance, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.